I couldn't believe what I was watching. My chest tightened as I stared at my phone screen. There was my mother, Linda Parker, sitting at our family dining table, a wine glass in her hand, completely unaware she was being broadcast live on the internet. "Oh please," she scoffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. "My daughter thinks selling houses makes her successful. She couldn't hack it in nursing school, and now she's just drifting through life like a desperate failure." My cousin Maya had texted me an hour earlier, "You need to see this. I'm so sorry." She'd attached a link to her latest live stream, part of her ongoing attempt to become a social media influencer. I had been out of town at a real estate conference in Providence. I was just settling into my hotel room when the message came through. "My name is Evelyn Parker. I'm 32 years old, and for the past 5 years, I've been quietly paying my mother's medical bills after her rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis. I drove her to appointments, handled her insurance paperwork, covered her medication costs, all while working 60-hour weeks to keep my real estate business afloat in Boston. No one at that dinner table knew I'd drained my savings account last year when her insurance denied coverage for a specialized treatment. It's such a shame," my mother continued on the video, clearly enjoying the attention from my aunts and uncles. "All those big dreams about becoming a nurse, and now she just sells houses to people who actually succeeded in life." She laughed. And to my horror, I could hear my uncle and aunt laughing along with her. Maya's camera caught everything. She was filming from her lap, probably trying to be discreet while documenting everyday family life for her followers. My mother had no idea she was being recorded, which somehow made her words hurt even more. "Remember when she dropped out of nursing school," my mother said, turning to my aunt. "She came home crying about how hard the exams were. Pathetic. And now she acts like selling a house every few months makes her successful." The truth was, I'd put my nursing education on hold specifically to help her when she got sick. I was making decent money in real estate, but every extra dollar went to her care instead of back to school. "She just doesn't have what it takes," my mother sighed dramatically, reaching for her wine glass, the same wine I had bought for family dinners. "Some people just aren't cut out for real achievement." The live stream dragged on for another agonizing minute before Maya finally turned the camera away. I sat frozen in my hotel room, tears streaming down my face. For years, I'd told myself my mother's harsh comments were just pain talking. That underneath it all, she appreciated what I was doing. But this wasn't a slip. This was who she really was. My phone buzzed again. "Maya, I'm so sorry you had to see that." I didn't realize what she was saying until it was too late. "Do you want me to take the video down?" I stared at the message for a long moment. "No," I typed back. "Leave it up. I need to show you something tomorrow when I get back." And in that moment, something inside me quietly broke, and something else began to form. The drive back from Providence the next morning felt unreal, like my body was moving while my mind stayed stuck in that hotel room replaying every cruel word. My mother's laughter echoed in my head, sharp and dismissive, mocking the life I had built. I barely remembered checking out of the hotel or merging onto the highway. All I could think about was how easily she had torn me apart, without knowing I was listening. "My name is Elena Brooks. I'm 32 years old, and for the past 5 years I had been quietly holding my mother's life together. After her diagnosis with severe rheumatoid arthritis, everything changed. I paid her medical bills. I drove her to appointments. I spent hours on the phone fighting insurance companies and covering medication costs they refused to approve. I did all of this while working relentless 60-hour weeks running my real estate business in Boston. No one at that Sunday dinner table knew the truth. They didn't know that I had emptied my savings account the previous year when her insurance denied coverage for a specialized treatment. They didn't know that every commission check I earned was already spent before it reached my account. And yet there she was, on a live stream, calling me a failure. I pulled into my driveway and sat there long after the engine stopped. I hadn't told my mother I was back in town. She thought I was still networking at the conference. My phone buzzed, another message from my cousin Maya. I'm at the cafe on Maple Street if you want to talk. I opened my laptop bag and stared at a thick folder labeled Mom Medical Records. Inside were 5 years of receipts, payment confirmations, appointment schedules, and insurance correspondence. I had kept everything for taxes and organization. I never imagined it would become proof of betrayal. At the cafe, Maya spotted me immediately. At 16, with her bright blue hair and oversized headphones, she looked far too young to be carrying this kind of guilt. I'm so sorry, Elena, she said as soon as I sat down. I didn't realize how bad it was until it was happening. It's not your fault, I said quietly. Actually, I need to thank you. She blinked in confusion as I placed the folder on the table and opened it. Her eyes widened as she flipped through page after page. This is a lot, she whispered. Over $100,000, I said calmly. And 5 years of my life. Maya looked up at me, anger replacing shock. And she called you worthless. Something inside me settled then. The fog lifted. I'm done, I said. I've already started removing myself from her accounts. I'm going back to nursing school. As I said the words out loud, they felt real. Final. I pulled out my phone and transferred the money I'd been saving for her next treatment into my personal savings. For the first time in years, I wasn't choosing survival. I was choosing myself. The drive back from Providence the next morning passed in a haze. I barely remembered checking out of the hotel or stopping for coffee. My mind kept replaying Margaret's voice from the video, sharp, mocking, amused, laughing at the life I had built to protect her. 5 years earlier, my life had looked very different. I was 27, halfway through nursing school, exhausted but happy. Becoming a nurse had always been my dream. I wanted to help people, to matter. Then the phone call came that changed everything. Margaret had collapsed at work and been rushed to the hospital. The diagnosis was aggressive rheumatoid arthritis. Chronic. Expensive. Life-altering. It's not fair, she cried from the hospital bed. How am I supposed to afford this? Insurance barely covers anything. I held her hand and promised, we'll figure it out together. My father had passed away when I was in high school. Since then, it had been just the two of us. She worked double shifts so I could have opportunities. I believed I owed her everything. Within months, I made the decision that would define the next 5 years of my life. I paused nursing school. Real estate offered flexible hours and better income potential. It wasn't my passion, but it was a way to survive. A way to take her to appointments, manage her care, and pay the bills. It was supposed to be temporary. Temporary became years. Margaret's condition improved with treatment, but the costs never stopped. Expensive medications. Specialist visits. Physical therapy. Insurance denials. Endless phone calls. I became her advocate, her accountant, her chauffeur, her safety net. You're so responsible, she'd say sometimes. Those moments kept me going. But watching the live stream shattered everything I believed. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car long after turning off the engine. I hadn't told her I was coming back early. She thought I was still networking with other realtors. My phone buzzed. Lena, I'm at the Maple Street Cafe. We can talk whenever you're ready. I took a deep breath and grabbed my laptop bag. Inside was a thick folder labeled medical records. I'd kept it for taxes, every receipt, every payment, every insurance document. 5 years of proof. 5 years of sacrifice. At the cafe, I spotted Lena immediately, bright blue hair, oversized headphones, guilt written all over her face. "I'm so sorry, Claire," she said the moment I sat down. I didn't know she'd say those things. "I swear. It's not your fault," I said calmly. "Actually, I need to thank you." She blinked in confusion. I placed the folder on the table and opened it. Page after page of payments spilled out between us. "I paid for everything," I said quietly. "Her treatments, medications, insurance. Over $100,000. Lena's eyes widened. "This is insane." "I put my entire life on hold," I continued. "My degree, my savings, even relationships. All because I thought she needed me. And she called you a failure." Lena's voice shook with anger. I nodded, surprised by how calm I felt. "So what are you going to do?" she asked. I closed the folder. "I'm done," I said. "I'm choosing myself now." For the first time in years, the weight on my chest began to lift. My name is Lena Harper, and for the first time in years, I woke up without the familiar weight pressing on my chest. The fallout from my decision had been loud, chaotic, and painful, but the silence afterward felt strangely peaceful. 3 days after I removed myself from my mother Margaret Harper's medical accounts, my phone was still lighting up non-stop. Calls from relatives I barely spoke to, messages filled with accusations, guilt, and judgment. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I focused on putting my life back together, piece by piece. My dining table was buried under nursing textbooks again. Anatomy. Pharmacology. Notes I hadn't touched in years. Holding them felt like reclaiming a version of myself I had buried to survive. I had officially re-enrolled in the accelerated nursing program, and classes would begin in just a few months. Meanwhile, my real estate business had started to stabilize in ways I hadn't expected. Without constantly juggling hospital visits, insurance calls, and emotional manipulation, I could finally focus. I streamlined my client list, raised my commission minimums, and hired a part-time assistant named Kara, a sharp college student who handled scheduling and paperwork. "You should have done this years ago," Kara said one afternoon as we reviewed listings. I smiled weakly. I wasn't allowed to. That evening, my cousin Emily, the only family member who hadn't attacked me, called. "She's spiraling," Emily said carefully. "Aunt Margaret's telling everyone you abandoned her. She's saying you had a breakdown." I laughed softly, not out of humor, but disbelief. "Of course she is. There's something else," Emily added. "She's planning to move in with Aunt Denise permanently. And she's asking people for money." I closed my eyes. So it had begun. The difference now was that it wasn't my responsibility. A week later, I received an email notification. The family group thread had exploded again. Screenshots flooded in, arguments, blame, and finally, receipts. Someone had opened the spreadsheet I'd sent documenting every payment I'd made over 5 years. The total was impossible to ignore. $127,430. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. Uncle Ray messaged privately, "I didn't know you were covering everything." Aunt Clara wrote, "Your mother never told us the truth." I didn't respond. I didn't need apologies now. I needed boundaries. 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. I was nominated for a local Resilience in Real Estate Award, recognizing professionals who overcame personal hardship while maintaining excellence. My broker, Mark Ellison, had submitted my story without telling me. "You deserved recognition," he said. You've been carrying more than anyone knew. For the first time, my struggle wasn't being mocked behind my back. It was being acknowledged. That night, as I studied late into the evening, my phone buzzed once more. A message from my mother. You've humiliated me. I stared at the screen, calm and steady. No response. Because for the first time in my life, I understood something clearly: walking away wasn't cruelty. It was survival. And I wasn't going back. By the time autumn arrived, my life barely resembled the one I'd been living just a year earlier. Nursing school had consumed my weekdays, real estate still paid my bills, and for the first time in a long while, I felt balanced. Busy, but balanced. I woke up with purpose instead of dread. My mother, Evelyn Carter, however, was not adjusting well. Since I'd removed myself from her medical accounts, she had been rotating between relatives, leaning heavily on guilt and half-truths. Aunt Marlene had taken her in temporarily, but within weeks, cracks started to show. Calls and messages trickled in, never apologies, never accountability, only complaints. She says you abandoned her. She doesn't understand why you are being so cold. She's really struggling, you know. I listened politely. I said very little. One evening, while reviewing pharmacology notes at my kitchen table, my cousin Lena called. Her tone was hesitant, careful. You should probably know, she said, your mom's been telling everyone that you're unstable. That school stressed you out and you lost perspective. I closed my notebook slowly. There it was, the familiar tactic. Rewrite the story. Make herself the victim. Paint me as the problem. I figured, I replied calmly. You're not going to say anything? Lena asked. I already did, I said. With facts. The next morning, my inbox confirmed I was right. An email from my Uncle Robert sat unread, subject line blunt: we need to talk about your behavior. I read it once, then archived it without replying. Instead, I focused on my placement exam results. Passed. Strongly. My academic advisor congratulated me and suggested I consider a specialized track once clinicals began. That single conversation filled me with more pride than a decade of trying to earn my mother's approval ever had. A week later, the confrontation I'd been quietly expecting finally arrived. I had just finished showing a townhouse when I noticed a familiar car parked behind mine. Evelyn stood beside it, leaning on her cane, her posture carefully curated for maximum sympathy. Aunt Marlene hovered nearby, arms crossed. Can we talk? My mother asked, voice brittle but controlled. I sighed, keys still in hand. Briefly. She launched into it immediately: how hard things had been, how confused she felt, how family was supposed to stick together. The words were well rehearsed. I gave up 5 years of my life, she said. And now you're punishing me. No, I corrected quietly. I gave up 5 years of my life. You just benefited from it. Her face tightened. So you're really choosing school over your own mother? I'm choosing myself, I replied. For the first time. Aunt Marlene looked between us, uncertainty finally cracking her loyalty. Evelyn, she said slowly, did you really say those things about her? On that video? My mother didn't answer. Silence filled the parking lot. I hope you get the help you need, I said at last. But it won't be from me anymore. As I drove away, my hands shook, but not from fear. From relief. For the first time, I understood something clearly: walking away wasn't abandonment. It was survival. 3 months passed in a blur of motion and momentum. I had aced my nursing placement exam, officially enrolled in the accelerated nursing program, and restructured my real estate business to fit my new life. Late nights became routine again, but this time, they were filled with studying anatomy instead of arguing with insurance companies. I hired Lena, a sharp college student, as my part-time assistant. She handled scheduling, paperwork, and follow-ups while I balanced classes and select high-value listings. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. For the first time in years, my effort went toward building my future. The family situation had settled into a quiet stalemate. After our confrontation, my mother, Margaret Reed, had moved in temporarily with my Aunt Clara. Clara eventually reached out to me, her voice heavy with regret. I didn't know the truth, she admitted over coffee. Margaret told us you were selfish. I should have asked you directly. It's okay, I said honestly. She's always controlled the story. Then came something unexpected. My broker nominated me for the Resilience in Real Estate Award, an annual recognition for agents who overcame personal hardship while maintaining professional excellence. I almost declined the invitation. I didn't feel like celebrating anything, but Evan, my colleague, insisted. You've carried more than anyone here, he said. You deserve this. The ceremony was held in a downtown hotel ballroom. I wore a navy blue dress, my first real splurge in years, and for once, I felt confident walking into a room without guilt weighing me down. When my name was called, I froze. And the Resilience Award goes to Claire Reed. Applause filled the room as I made my way to the stage, hands trembling slightly as I accepted the crystal trophy. Looking out at the audience, I realized something profound. I had survived not because someone saved me, but because I finally saved myself. That night, as the event ended, my phone buzzed repeatedly. Multiple missed calls. A message from Maya, my cousin. Emergency. Your mom is in the hospital. She's asking for you. My chest tightened, but the familiar panic didn't consume me like before. Is she stable? I asked calmly. Yes. They think it's a reaction to new medication. I made a decision, one that would have been impossible months ago. I'll come after I'm done here. When I arrived at the hospital later that night, my mother lay in bed, awake and alert. Her eyes narrowed when she saw me. Nice of you to show up, she said coldly. I came as soon as I could, I replied evenly. I hope you're okay. She scoffed. If you hadn't abandoned me, this wouldn't have happened. I didn't argue. I simply placed the award on the bedside table. I didn't abandon you, I said quietly. I stopped abandoning myself. Silence filled the room. For once, she had nothing to say. And I finally realized, I didn't need her approval anymore. My name is Evelyn Brooks, and for the first time in my life, I finally understood what freedom felt like. 3 months had passed since everything changed. My life no longer revolved around emergency phone calls, unpaid medical bills, or emotional manipulation disguised as family duty. Instead, my days were filled with purpose. I had officially re-enrolled in nursing school, and every lecture felt like reclaiming a piece of the future I had once sacrificed. That morning, I stood in a crisp white clinical uniform at St. Anne's Teaching Hospital. My hands were steady as I adjusted and foreline for my patient, an elderly woman who smiled at me with tired but grateful eyes. Thank you, dear, she whispered. Those 2 words meant more to me than any apology I had never received. My instructor, Dr. Reynolds, nodded approvingly. Excellent technique, Evelyn. You're a natural. I smiled, feeling something settle into place. This was where I belonged. After my shift, I sat in my car for a moment, breathing deeply. My phone buzzed with a message from my cousin Lena. Your interview just hit 30,000 views. People are loving your story. I shook my head in disbelief. A week earlier, I had been interviewed about career changes entering nursing later in life. I had spoken honestly about resilience, boundaries, and learning when to walk away. I never expected it to resonate with so many people. As I drove home, my phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. "Hello. It's Uncle Marcus," the voice said gently. "Do you have a minute?" I hesitated, then nodded even though he couldn't see me. "Yes. I saw your interview," he continued. "I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner." The words caught me off guard. My throat tightened. "Thank you. That means more than you know." He paused before adding, "Your mother saw it too." I waited. "She didn't say much," he admitted. "But I think she finally understands what she lost." When the call ended, I sat quietly in my driveway. For a long time, I had imagined this moment, my mother realizing the truth, feeling regret, maybe even apologizing. But instead of longing, I felt peace. I no longer needed her recognition. Inside my home, my nursing textbooks sat neatly beside a framed real estate award from my previous career, symbols of who I had been and who I was becoming. Both mattered. Neither defined me completely. My mother and I still weren't speaking, and that was okay. I had stopped chasing validation from someone who only valued me when I was useful. That night, as I studied for my next exam, I smiled to myself. I had rebuilt my life, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. And that, I realized, was the most powerful ending of all.